Beneath the surface of our world lies a question that refuses to drown, a myth whispered by philosophers, a memory that never fades, a city swallowed by the sea, and yet it haunts humanity like a dream we can't forget. Atlantis, a name that carries the weight of an entire civilization, more advanced, more spiritual, more enlightened than any that followed, a world that, according to legend, fell in a single day and night of tragedy. But what if Atlantis wasn't a legend at all? What if the story of a sunken empire hides fragments of truth, ancient records, geological evidence, or memories encoded in our myths? For more than 2,000 years, scholars, explorers, and mystics have searched for its ruins. From the depths of the Atlantic Ocean to the sands of the Sahara, the trail of Atlantis stretches across continents, timelines, and belief systems. Plato, the philosopher who first told the tale, insisted it was real. He said it stood beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, and that its power once reached as far as Egypt and beyond, and then it vanished. In one cataclysmic event, the earth opened, the ocean rose, and Atlantis sank beneath the waves, taking with it its people, its wisdom, and its warnings. But was Plato describing history, allegory, or a secret humanity wasn't meant to remember? This is not just the story of a lost city. It's the story of obsession, deception, and a question that might still have no answer. Was Atlantis real, or have we been chasing a reflection of ourselves all along? The Philosopher's Code, Plato's mysterious account. It begins not with an explorer or an archaeologist, but with a philosopher. Around 360 BCE, in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Plato wrote the only surviving description of Atlantis. According to him, Atlantis was not a fantasy, but a memory, a story told to the Greek statesman Solon by Egyptian priests in the city of Sais. They spoke of a great island empire that existed 9,000 years before Plato's time, a society of immense knowledge, immense power, and immense pride. Plato described a city built in concentric rings, land and water intertwined like the geometry of perfection. At its center stood a temple to Poseidon, the god of the sea, where a golden statue of the deity rode 6 winged horses, surrounded by walls of silver and orichalcum, a mysterious metal said to shine like fire. Atlantis, he wrote, was a civilization that once rivaled the gods. But pride became its downfall. Its rulers, corrupted by greed and power, turned their eyes toward conquest. They invaded lands beyond their borders, as including ancient Athens. And then the gods decided to destroy them. In a single night of earthquakes and floods, the island of Atlantis sank beneath the waves and disappeared forever. For most, it was allegory, a moral warning about hubris and corruption, but for others, Plato wasn't just telling a story, he was encoding a truth, one that pointed to something humanity had truly lost. The search begins, from scholars to madmen. If Atlantis was a parable, it was a powerful one, but if it was real, it was irresistible. From the Renaissance onward, explorers began to take Plato's words literally. Maps were drawn, expeditions launched. Men risked their lives chasing a city that might never have existed. In the 16th century, Spanish conquistadors scoured the Caribbean and South America, convinced that the New World was the site of Atlantis. Others turned to the Azores, Canary Islands, and Madeira, noting they formed a rough semicircle west of Africa, perhaps the last visible mountaintops of a drowned continent. The Enlightenment gave rise to skeptics and dreamers alike. Some saw Atlantis as the cradle of all human civilization, the source of Egyptian and Mayan knowledge. Others dismissed it as pure fiction, a myth designed to teach virtue through tragedy. Then came the 19th century. A man named Ignatius Donnelly, an American congressman turned mystic, published Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, in 1882. He claimed that Atlantis was the original mother culture of all ancient societies, and that its destruction inspired the biblical flood. Donnelly's book ignited a fire. Suddenly, the lost city wasn't a metaphor, it was a quest. And in that quest, science, spirituality, and obsession became indistinguishable. If you love exploring hidden truths, secret histories, and the mysteries that shaped our world, leave a like and subscribe. This channel is just beginning, and every click truly helps keep this journey alive. The theories. Where could Atlantis be? Over time, hundreds of possible locations for Atlantis have been proposed, each with its own believers and evidence. Some say it lies under the Atlantic Ocean, where massive underwater plateaus hint at ancient landmasses long submerged. Others point to the Mediterranean, suggesting that Plato's island beyond the Pillars of Hercules could have been a misunderstood reference to Santorini, once devastated by a volcanic explosion that erased the Minoan civilization. The Caribbean theory links Atlantis to the lush plateaus of Cuba and the Bahamas, where mysterious underwater structures, like the Bimini Road, were discovered in the 1960s. To believers, these blocks of limestone look like ancient roads or foundations. To scientists, they're simply natural formations. Then there's the Sahara Desert, specifically the Risha structure, a massive circular formation in Mauritania, visible only from space. It matches Plato's description: concentric rings of land and water surrounded by mountains to the north and open plains to the south. Was Atlantis not drowned but buried by time and sand? Even Antarctica has been accused. Satellite images reveal vast geometric formations beneath the ice. Could shifting poles have buried a once temperate civilization under frozen silence? No theory has ever been proven, and yet each one contains a whisper of truth, that something older than we know once existed and was lost. The flood myths, echoes from every civilization. There's a strange unity among the world's oldest stories. From Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, nearly every ancient civilization speaks of a flood that ended an age. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written 4,000 years ago, describes a deluge sent by the gods to cleanse the earth, a tale strikingly similar to Noah's Ark. In India's Vedic texts, Manu, the first man, survives a divine flood by building a boat guided by a giant fish, the avatar of Vishnu. The Aztecs spoke of 5 suns, or 5 cycles of destruction and rebirth, one of which ended in a great flood. Different continents, different cultures, same memory. Could these stories all point to a single prehistoric event, a global catastrophe that erased civilizations from memory? Around 12,000 years ago, Earth emerged from the last ice age. Sea levels rose by over 120 meters. Entire coastlines vanished. And in that violent transition, could Atlantis have been one of the casualties? For some scientists, that's not a fantasy, it's plausible. If an advanced society existed on now submerged coastlines, the rising seas would have erased every trace. What we call myth may simply be the world's collective memory of drowning. The science and the skeptics. Modern archaeology, however, remains cautious, even dismissive. No verifiable evidence of a city like Atlantis has ever been found. No artifacts, no ruins, no inscriptions. Geologists point out that the kind of sudden destruction Plato described in one day and one night is impossible on that scale. Continents don't sink overnight. Historians argue that Plato never meant for Atlantis to be taken literally. They believe he invented it as an allegory to illustrate his vision of an ideal society, Athens, triumphing over a corrupt one. But here's where it gets interesting. If Plato invented the story, why did he give it such specific details? Precise geography, a timeline, a lineage of kings, even architectural measurements. It's too elaborate for simple fiction. And consider this. Some of the places and events he described were proven real centuries later. The city of Troy, once dismissed as myth, was rediscovered in the 19th century. Knossos, the Minoan capital, was unearthed in Crete, revealing a civilization eerily similar to Plato's description of Atlantis. So maybe the skeptics are right, and yet perhaps they're also blind to a deeper truth. Maybe Atlantis isn't a place we can dig up. Maybe it's a chapter of human history that ended before we learned to write. The esoteric connection, hidden knowledge, and the gods. In the world of mysticism and the occult, Atlantis was never just a city. It was a gateway of knowledge. Esoteric traditions, from theosophy to Hermeticism, claim that the Atlanteans were the keepers of ancient spiritual science, an understanding of energy, vibration, and consciousness that modern civilization has forgotten. Helena Blavatsky, founder of the Theosophical Society, wrote in the 19th century that Atlantis was the 4th great root race of humanity, beings who mastered forces beyond matter, capable of communicating with the divine. When they misused that power, she said, nature itself destroyed them. Others, like Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet of the 20th century, claimed to have psychically accessed memories of Atlantis. He spoke of crystal technologies, energy beams, and temples that harnessed the power of the earth. Cayce even predicted that parts of Atlantis would rise again near the Bahamas around 1968, the same year the mysterious Bimini Road was discovered underwater. Coincidence? Maybe. But for believers, it was proof that the story still breathes. To the esoteric mind, Atlantis represents not a lost continent, but a lost consciousness, a memory of what humanity once was and what it might become again. Atlantis and us, the mirror of civilization. Whether Atlantis existed or not, its myth endures because it speaks to something timeless, something uncomfortably close to home. Plato's warning wasn't about the past, it was about us. A civilization that grows powerful, proud, and disconnected from nature will always meet the same fate: collapse. Whether that happens under the weight of greed, war, or ecological disaster doesn't matter. The story repeats. Look around: rising seas, political divisions, the race for technology and domination. Atlantis is no longer a city. It's a metaphor for our own age, one that builds higher towers even as the ground trembles beneath us. And maybe that's why the legend refuses to die, because deep down we sense that we are walking the same path. Atlantis isn't just a mystery of archaeology, it's a prophecy written in the waves. In the end, the question remains: was Atlantis real or just a story? The truth is, it doesn't matter, because every civilization builds its own Atlantis, a pinnacle of ambition, beauty, and arrogance that eventually sinks under its own weight. Maybe Plato's island lies somewhere beneath the Atlantic, or beneath the sands of Mauritania, or deep within the collective memory of mankind. Maybe the ruins are real, or maybe the ruins are us. If Atlantis once existed, it has already returned, not as stone, but as a warning that no empire, no matter how brilliant, is eternal. That progress without wisdom leads only to drowning. And perhaps that's why, even today, we still dream of finding it. Not because we want to see its ruins, but because we hope that somewhere in its fall lies a lesson we can still learn before our own waves rise. Atlantis may be lost, but maybe it's waiting for us to remember why.